blew up everything that had worked for us leading up to that point. Everybody lost their job one night in my exec team. We were going to have to reset. By revolution, which is warfare, there's bloodshed.
Meet Jason T. Smith, the revolutionary entrepreneur who blew up his entire company to achieve true success. Discover how he redefined leadership and transformed his business through conviction and courage. Trailblazer in healthcare and founder of the Back in Motion Health Group, Jason's journey from a garage startup to a national brand exemplifies the power of conviction and innovative leadership.
What are my convictions? What I'm really asking is what I think true entrepreneurship is, or at least my experience of it. There are three things that clearly stand out. Well, how did we then get to 100 million? Well, 100 million was just...
So Jason, welcome to the show. My
Thank
first
you.
guest.
No pressure, hey?
Yeah, well, before we get on to the actual interview, I thought I'm going to do my interview very different. I'm going to do a show and tell segment. And so what have you got there to show to our audience, and tell me more about it?
This is a very small representation of the real thing. So I have a Harley-Davidson 2014 limited edition night rod parked in the garage at home. And this is the key ring that attaches to the fob that disarms the security system for me to get out and ride the thing. So... it's a passion. It's good fun. I don't have a tattoo anywhere on my body. I don't have any piercings. I haven't been in prison, but I love riding a Harley-Davidson. So I'm not quite a one percenter, but it's still a great way to spend the weekend.
And why Harley and not like those other motorcycles?
Yeah, look, I mean, I've ridden lots of bikes over the years, but there is something peculiar about the Harley. It does capture your imagination in ways other bikes don't. And the real claim to fame of the Harley is that there is no one bike the same. So every bike is unique. So I've ridden Hondas and I've ridden Yamahas, but yeah, I enjoy the Harley.
And what is it about the Harley that you resonate with? Like, what is it in terms of the brand, or what does it tell you? That obviously sometimes you like something because it kind of speaks to you. Is there anything that we can learn about you through this Harley?
I think the bike generally is a great metaphor for life. I mean, you can talk and read and live vicariously through everybody else's experiences, but there is nothing like getting into the game and into the action and feeling and experiencing the thrill of the ride yourself. And so when I think about the Harley, it's freedom. You know, you get on the bike. I'm on my own generally.
Yep.
It's helmet time. The phone doesn't ring. There is something very special, very pristine about that experience. I love the noise. I love the bugs in the teeth. You know, like there's a lot of fun to have on a Harley. Yeah.
You sound like an adventurous guy.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
All right, so you mention a lot about the word conviction. So on your website, conviction, video conviction, next page conviction.
Yeah.
I'd love to learn more about what does it mean in terms of that word conviction.
I think we use lots of words in the pop culture to try and describe our purpose or our beliefs, our values, and I feel like they are all apt, they're all appropriate words. But for me, conviction just goes at least one step further. Conviction is this idea. It's not just a noble cause. It's not just a good idea. It's not just a possibility. A conviction is a compulsion. A conviction is something. It's not just something you could do. It's something you must do. It's almost like you're born for it. It's a truth you can't deny. And so when I think about, even in just everyday conversation, what are your convictions? What are my convictions? What I'm really asking is, what are those things you cannot deny? They are that's part of who you are. It's part of what you're meant to do. And even when you don't like it, you are propelled. You are compelled. You must do it. You can't ignore it. These are the convictions. So I think they go even a layer deeper than values.
So what is your conviction?
Well, I don't have a conviction. I mean, there are many convictions, I think, that make up the composition of who we are. But one of my convictions would be I'm not here by accident. I am here on purpose. I have been made in the image of God, that my life is not my own, that I need to live with a determination to fulfill all of God's intentions in my life. Like there's a whole bag of convictions that kind of converge into a powerful reason to do what I do.
Well, let's take us back to your childhood. I know the story of when you watch the TV and you saw this ad which led you into the journey of building a business and growing it to $100 million. Tell me more about your childhood. What was it like?
Yeah, I think I had a fairly predictable middle-class white Australian upbringing. Like I had great parents who loved me. I have an older sister. I went to a suburban school. I played weekend sport. Like it was fairly predictable. There was nothing out of the ordinary, but I count myself lucky. Like I count myself blessed to have had a relatively uneventful childhood in that sense. But you referenced this story at the age of 10. I had my first of probably only a handful of defining moments in my life. But at 10, like when I'm meant to be just worried about Nintendos and skateboards, I'm watching the cartoons and I see a World Vision ad, which in the 1980s, this was actually innovative.
I remember it.
Yeah, this
Even
was
though I was born in the
groundbreaking.
80s, I still remember World Vision was around a lot. Yeah.
Like this wasn't a genre that had been overdone. In fact, they were breaking new ground as they were starting to confront people through television commercials for $1 a day, for the for a cup of coffee a day, you can save a life. Celebrities were going full face to camera. They were showing these images of young Ethiopian children with distended bellies and frail limbs, and malnourished cows are wandering around in the backyard, and these little kids can barely stand, and they just end up collapsing in a cloud of dust and dirt. And I'm 10 and I'm looking at all of these images and it's wrecking me in ways I don't even, or at least then, did not have words to describe. And the questions I find myself asking at that time is, well, where are their parents? Where are the doctors and the nurses? Why can't they go into a supermarket and get food? Like, how hard can this be? Of course, naive, completely oblivious to the complexities of the developing world. But in that boyish childhood heart, I have a connection with God. And I feel like this matters more to him than it will ever matter to me. And without religion, without organised thought around it, I just remember making a promise to God, a God I barely knew, a God I presumed existed. I just remember making a promise and saying, I will play my part to try and help that. And I felt like the obvious pledge was I should become a nurse or a doctor and I should go work as a medical missionary. And that began the beginnings of my life trajectory at 10 years of age.
So did you grow up in a Christian family and you know about God? You grew up with God?
Yeah, my first personal experience with God was at the age of 10. My parents possibly had some nominal faith in their childhoods. I describe, for the most part, from about the age of 10 onwards, I grew up with a faith dimension in our home. But prior to 10 years of age, I wouldn't think it was of much to speak of. So for my living memory, for the most part of my living memory, I would say yes. Yeah.
And when did God tell you that you should be an entrepreneur? And when did your kind of entrepreneurship dream start to, come to like that, that conviction that you needed to be an entrepreneur?
So I would say I barely know what an entrepreneur is. I don't even know how to spell it. It's such a enigma of an idea, really. I think we use that label when we have no better description. So there was no clear moment in my story where the light bulb went on and I thought, I should become an entrepreneur, or that I am even one of those. So when I get introduced as one, I kind of smile on the inside because it's probably not how I would ever ordinarily describe myself.
What would you describe yourself as?
A frustrated missionary, an accidental businessman, a very reluctant franchisor. They would be the words that honestly come to mind. I'm a very likely success, frankly.
And what is it about entrepreneurship that you feel like the word just didn't match it? Like, what does it mean to you?
I think the stigma of an entrepreneur is one that paints this idea that you are an innovative disruptor. You are this creative genius. You can look around corners, see into the future. You can solve problems that nobody has ever contemplated a solution for. You are a superpower of proportions that makes the common man feel inferior. Like entrepreneurs in the commercial marketplace setting carry this aura, right?
Yeah.
They create something out of nothing. And so I don't think really much, if any, of that applies to me.
Yeah.
But because I've started many businesses, those businesses have scaled. The scaling of those businesses has reaped commercial rewards. People assume that this was all my original intention and they credit me where none is due.
Yeah.
So to go back to that question, when did I think I became an entrepreneur? Well, the answer is actually I've been dragged along kicking and screaming in my own story, feeling a tension to be working in medical